All right, for this video, I'm going to take you through the process of focus stacking using Photoshop. It's a pretty quick and easy process, especially if you are using 10 images or less. When you get into larger numbers of images in your focus stack, Photoshop slows down quite a bit. So outside software tends to be preferred. Here's the basic steps, and I'm going to come back to the slide when we finish. So I started off with, I have 4 images here in Lightroom, and you can see with the marigold. Each of them is going to show a different sliver of focus, starting from the front of the closest part to the camera, and then focusing away. So the front petal here on the edge of that petal is in focus. As I go to the second image, you can see the focus shifted back a little bit, back a little more, until I get the outer edge of the petal in the very back of the marigold. So with these 4 images, I'm going to hold down Shift and click on all 4, and then right click over my selection and choose Open as Layers in Photoshop. That will pull into Photoshop, and I'm going to see each of these layers come into my document in Photoshop, and then I can talk you through the rest of the steps. Now, as I mentioned, Photoshop does a good job with 10 or less images. But if you have 10 or more, the software I prefer to use is Helicon Focus. That's Helicon Focus. That just is designed just for focus stacking, so it works very efficiently. Okay, as you can see by the layers, all 4 of my images have been loaded, and I can look at them again one by one and see how that focus changes. So the first step, I want to go ahead and Shift and click on all 4 of them. And then I'm going to choose Edit, Auto Align. I want to make sure that these are all lined up, and that so that way the stacking will go more smoothly. You can see I have a dialog box here, and Auto is the default. Auto works fantastic. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. These are smaller size JPEGs just to speed up the processing for the demonstration here. If you are using raw images, each of these processes will take a little bit longer. And that's why once you exceed 10 images, this whole process can become very tedious in Photoshop. All right, I have them all aligned. And as you can see on this bottom left-hand corner, you can tell there is an overlap of some of the images. And that's because as you focus further away from you, that creates a narrower perspective or viewpoint. So whenever you decide to create a focus stacked image, you always want to start with a wider perspective of view, because you're always going to end up cropping your image at the end. So you might want to keep that in mind. But for right now, this is perfect because I just want to make sure it's all aligned. I can crop later when it's completely finished and stacked. So my 4 layers are still all selected. So the next step is Edit, Auto Blend. The default in this dialog box is Photoshop recognizes it's a series, a stack of images versus a panorama. So with that selected, I can go ahead and hit OK, use that default. And now, of course, watch the process go to work. And we'll notice momentarily on the right-hand side of the screen in my layers that I will have a set of masks that will show up on each layer as Photoshop is determining the sharpest areas of each layer. So just like that, my image crisped up. And if you look at those layers, you can see a separate mask on every layer. So again, Photoshop is finding the sharpest areas within all 4 layers and creating a mask to block out the areas it doesn't want it to be used, and giving me the sharpest image possible of my marigold. And as promised, the outer edges still have a little bit of extra blur and sometimes some artifacting. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my cropping tool and do a little bit of a crop just to get rid of some of that awkward stuff on the outer edges. And that's how you do a focus stack in Photoshop. So we'll go back to the steps again and just review that real quick. So the first step, adjust colors, exposure in Lightroom before exporting. I did that prior to the demonstration, but just if you have to drop highlights or something like that, you want to do that on all the images before you do the stacking. And again, JPEG images will be faster. Your first step is to edit in, open as layers in Photoshop. Select all the layers. Use the drop-down menu Edit, Auto Align. and then edit auto blend, and then crop as needed. And that's how it's done. So give that a try, and I hope you enjoy the world of focus stacking.